Are you leading your business with a clear vision that propels you forward, or are you just managing day-to-day operations without a bigger plan? Strategic planning isn't just for large corporations. It's a game changer for contractors who want to drive growth, foster a motivated team, and adapt to changes in the market. In today's episode, we'll dive into essential strategic planning for contractors, from defining a compelling vision and mission to setting actionable objectives and monitoring progress. We're going to explore how you can transform your business by creating purpose-driven goals. You'll learn practical steps to involve your entire team in the planning process, empower them to achieve superior goals, and ensure stellar communications at every level. It's about sustainable, purposeful growth that aligns with your company's strengths and opportunities. This is the Contractors, where we discuss financial strategies and business growth insights for contractors. I'm Wade Carpenter with Carpenter Company CPAs. With me, my co-host, Stephen Brown with McDaniel Whitley Bonding and Insurance. Stephen, strategic planning can often seem like an overwhelming task. How do you advise contractors to get started in finding their vision and mission, especially when they're juggling so many immediate business needs?
Well, so much of it is motivating the contractors to understand the importance of strategic planning. I thought we should title the podcast Strategery 101. It's a made-up word that everybody knows the meaning of. It's a verb. It's a kind of a call to action. But strategic planning is everything to every organization. And my recent podcast on lean construction was a definite strategic initiative to do things lean in order to improve your productivity. Strategic plan is just basically the cornerstone, the building block of your business foundation. And why it's so important, Wade, is the elements that go into it, the things that you need to consider for the strategic plan. That's what makes it work.
Yeah. And again, we were talking just right before this, and I think we're probably talking about several of the major pieces of a strategic plan, as well as a case study that you brought out. I think that's great. But I'm getting to a point, and I guess we're recording this mid-September, and I'm getting to a point where we start doing tax planning and bond planning, cash flow planning all at the same time. And I'm thinking about strategic planning, and most contractors do very little planning whatsoever. But if they do, it's maybe they want to know how much taxes they're going to have to pay. But what I'm thinking about with strategic planning, that's not something you should regularly visit, but strategic planning probably is something that I think of as what's the game-changing epiphany in your life? What are you going to do different? What is going to make that next great success for you? I don't know how far we'll get into that, but I know you had some great notes. So what are your thoughts on getting started into this?
No, I think you're right. It's an epiphany of game-changing ideas that make you different, that make you better, that make you more productive. And it's something that has to be communicated, and everyone in your organization has to buy into it and believe it the way you do. And the first way to make sure that your employees buy into it is making sure that your business model is set up where they are valued extremely highly. So you say, well, I pay them. They do what I say. That's how I value them, by giving them a paycheck. But to value an employee is to not just get work out of them, but to get a purpose-driven work out of your employees and out of yourself. It's part of being focused. Create a vision that motivates you and drives you forward. The former head of Nintendo made that statement. Create a vision that motivates you and drives you forward. So that's the epiphany you were talking about. You get that vision and you start off with strategic planning with the two most fundamental things, Wade, and that's a vision statement and a mission statement. And everything that I've studied about strategic planning, Strategery 101, that's it first. No matter how you look at it, if you don't have that first, we change our mission statement at our church, for example, every 3 or 4 years, because a new group of leaders come in, and it's very important that everybody work from a single focused point. You say, well, you're a church. There is a single focus point, but operating the church and being intentional about what the church is called to do comes out in a different or better mission statement from time to time, that it's not flip-floppy, but it's focused. Our current one, I think, is fantastic. But the best vision and mission statement that I've seen, Wade, and the best for our listeners to study on strategic planning and all of the topics of today's podcast are Panda Express. Are you familiar with Panda Express?
Yeah, I wasn't really familiar until you started telling me the story, and I started doing a little research, but there's a lot of things I think you can learn from this. And I realize a fast food restaurant is not the same thing as construction, but if you're listening to this, there's definitely some learning points that you can take as a contractor from this particular case study. But just a couple of thoughts before we jump into that, if it's okay. this episode led me to think about some of my epiphanies in my business. And one of the game changer books for me was The E-Myth. Back in 1998, 1999, I read that book. I was a CPA that had been in public accounting for about 10 years and spitting numbers back at people. I read that book and I was like, I want to jump out on my phone and do my own thing and help people, not just their taxes. And that was the vision that I started putting forward. Not to get too deep into my story, but I went down this path of trying to preach vision and mission. And what people do is they write out something and it may be nice. Maybe they'll get it embroidered and stuck on the wall. But if nobody buys into it, it's meaningless. Most people write this thing, they stick it in a drawer and it goes nowhere. And I really didn't think about this, but my team now from 20 years ago, they buy into it. But I preached all that back then. Now they know it. And that's where I'm very proud of where they've come. But again, even 20, 25 years ago, I was like, well, that's a great thing to teach. And I honestly didn't get it myself back until now. It's like, yeah, I see that. And I see these major corporations that have this vision and you see where the employees buy into it. But until you actually really embody that vision and mission, it doesn't mean anything. And
Sure.
it's got to start from the top. So I didn't mean to hijack your thoughts here, but
No, you weren't at all, Wade. Everything has to start from the top. You're the one that has the idea as a business owner that takes that vision, crafts it together, and uses it to sell and motivate your employees to fulfill that mission statement, that vision. Panda Express, for example, their epiphany was not just simply that everybody loves wok cooked good Chinese food, which is everybody knows that. But that was not their epiphany. Their epiphany was their vision statement, which is when an organization takes care of its own people, those associates will take good care of its guests. That's the vision, taking good care of their people. Also, I might add that at least 6% of their $5 billion a year in sales goes back into the communities where they're located to help their communities. What employee doesn't like being involved helping other people as well? That's what everyone's called to do. The mission statement is more to the point of their restaurant. It's to deliver exceptional Asian dining experiences by building an organization where people are inspired to better their lives. Everything they're doing is providing wok-cooked food with consistent quality at affordable prices, and every part of their business planning goes back to their people. So what do you think about that?
I absolutely agree with that. And in Profit First Professionals, and as well as other CPA groups and things like that, where I see people struggling to keep people and they're paying exorbitant amounts of money to keep people in my profession, as well as construction. Having key people in the right roles is absolutely, one of those things that you've got to have for success. But it is true that I'm almost embarrassed to go talk at some of these Profit First get-togethers where everybody else is complaining about they can't keep people. But we have great people that I got one that's been with me 15 years, one's over 10 years. And I do some of the stuff that they talk about. I try to take great care of my people, and they honestly take good care of me as well as take great care of my clients. So I think that's a great thought. And I didn't know that about Panda Express.
Yeah, 2,400 locations, literally in the last 10 years, doubled in sales, even during COVID, always trying to make their menu unique and test it. All the elements of strategic planning, they do to the nth degree. And so one thing I would say too is that as you're implementing a vision and mission statement and an initial strategic plan, we're just presenting 10 topics today, but you are going to have great things that you need to add in that are very important to you and your people. Those you add to your folder to go into your next strategic planning session. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, I think for all of our contractors, sometimes they do get overwhelmed just with the day-to-day life. I think as we were talking in the beginning, it's like, but getting away, taking yourself away from day to day and just, you may say, my business can't afford to take a day, can't take that day or a long weekend or vacation, but it is essentially, it's key to getting to these epiphanies. But you can't do it in your day-to-day life because there's so many things that I think that your day-to-day, you're surrounded by all the habits and things that you always do. as well as I would say hiring somebody that does strategic planning to sit down with you and say, look at a different perspective. And maybe that coach or whoever you hire doesn't do exactly what you do, but sometimes the epiphany is, hey, okay, so they're not coming about it from the exact same way that you would do. You may do things in construction, or in my case, I may do things in the accounting world that everybody else in my industry does. But if you want to find that one thing transforms your company, you can't be doing everything that everybody else is doing. So
Yeah.
sometimes having an outside perspective, number one, but number two, if they don't exactly come from your world, sometimes that's
A plus.
that's a definite plus. But then again, I also started thinking about two old guys like me and you that have been around the game. We know things that people stumble on all the time. And like younger versions of myself, or for these contractors, like I've been around this, you have been around this so much. We advise people on things that, they would take a lifetime to learn on their own and sometimes never learn.
You're exactly right, Wade. The whole premise that you started off with is if you want to chop a lot of wood, you got to take some time to sharpen your axe. That's an old saying. And if you want to do a strategic plan, you've got to be strategic about when and how you're going to do a strategic plan. So strategy is a word, if you look it up in the dictionary, there's a lot of connotations to military strategy, things you do to win the war. But strategy in itself is just a focused effort of reaching your vision, a focused effort on reaching your vision. It's not boring. It's not like this podcast is called pro forma balance sheets. You just mentioned that word to the contractors, as important as they are, and their eyes glaze over. And it's, I don't hear you. Shut up. Just the word budget or audit makes people cringe. But this is not that. This is so much more, Wade. Like you said, this is the vision. This is the epiphany that you had. And Peggy and Andrew Churn of Panda Express, they got it. They had the vision. And she has a background in engineering and data analysis, and he is a master cook, learned at the hand of his father. The food was created exceptionally. The business plan was created exceptionally. They tweak it and work it with the same vision statement that it started, and it grows and grows and makes money. And believe me, they have the same headaches contractors have with the cost that they can't control. Materials, labor costs, insurance, everything. So they decided to build their own buildings because they needed to have more control over all their expenses in it. If they could avoid being in a mall and have a freestanding store somewhere, they'd rather do that. So I just thought I'd mention that to our listeners because contractors, a lot of you are building their stores for them. Anyway, I digressed a little bit on that way, but we talked about vision statement and mission. The second thing is conduct an analysis of SWOTs, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What do you need to do to improve your company? What could it do to improve? What are their external opportunities for growth? And what are the external challenges that could impact your company's success? Wade, SWOT is a tried and true part of business planning, business understanding. What are your thoughts on SWOT?
Well, it's another one of those tools that every time you talk about a strategic plan, that's something that's supposed to be going in there. But again, until you embody that thought, there's so much from this. Actually, you just hit the high notes on this Panda Express thing, because the whole thing about being stuck in these malls where the expenses keep going up, the supply chain kind of messed them with them. There's a lot of things to this story. But going to the SWOT part, thinking about where your strengths are and your weaknesses, and weaknesses might be these malls jacking up their rent. The weakness might be you're stuck with the supply chain. I don't know that we're going to get into that part of the story or not, but there's a lot to that. And the other thing that I would say after years of using some of these tools is doing not only a SWOT analysis on yourself, but if you got a competitor, if you somebody that maybe your arch rival or whatever, thinking about the way they do things, and maybe they're more successful, or your perception is that they're more successful than you. What are they doing to make themselves? Or are they doing the same thing everybody else is doing? And then you realize, hey, I've been doing the same things everybody else is doing, so maybe I should do something a little different.
Wade, what a fantastic point. What a fantastic point, because all my best contractors at some point in time have said to me, I love competition. I love good competition. It makes me better. The study of a good competitor makes me better. That's why we talked about federal contracting and joint ventures. It's a way to get your foot in the door and learn how a better company may do things better, if they are. Or what you could be doing wrong. The next thing on the list, number 3, is set objectives that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound that align with your vision and mission. We don't have to spend too much time on that, but what are your main thoughts on that?
Again, all these topics probably are things that our listeners have heard all the time, but this particular acronym, I know you've heard a thousand times.
SMART.
SMART, it is more of, okay, I got a goal. I want to increase my revenue. But if you say, I want to increase my revenue by $500,000 next year or $1 million or whatever that number is, if you're not specific about it, if you don't have these elements of it, you're not going to hit it. You're just not. It may be this little cliche and this little acronym that you've heard forever, but take that to heart. They came up with that for a reason. And if you don't have the elements of this SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound, you got to have all those elements, or it's only luck if they come true.
Here's the thing. If you don't believe, if it just sounds like a bunch of stuff that they spout out in some kind of business school because they've done it for years, no. The SWOT part of Panda Express is dialed in. And you just look online about all the people that have done SWOT analysis and how much they do, how much SWOT analysis they do to keep their company relevant. And then the SMART part of it is implementing the things that you've learned from your SWOT analysis to keep them specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay, so again, listeners, you can learn all you want to know about SWOT and SMART by just Googling it. The next thing on the list was you got to put some strategies in place to meet these 2 objectives. One thing that can help you meet those objectives to find out that information for SWOT and then implement SMART are key areas of your marketing, your operations and finance. Wow, do we have enough podcasts on your operations and finance, Wade? And then your human resources. So those are the elements there. So again, we were talking about getting outside help if you need it. That's what consultants are for. Wade, real quick on an aside, how do you find a good consultant in one of these areas, in your opinion?
I didn't foresee that coming, but
Yeah. How do you find a good consultant? We should do a whole podcast on that.
somebody might be a good CPA and they may say, I got a great CPA. I never pay taxes. But that's not the mark of a good CPA. And I'm not sure how to define this, but the way I see it after all these years in business is like, has somebody made you think about your business in a different way that changed your path? There's 1,000 million people out there that want to become a consultant.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. They're everywhere. And I would look at, number one, the experience, but number 2, do they have real people out there that are changing lives?
I'm so glad I asked you that question. I think that's perfect. You remember we talked about your financial board of directors. We talk about them being diverse, not just from the construction industry. We talk about what a great source if you have that in place to find these people, to find the best people. And to also ask specifically, if you're talking to a friend or a friendly competitor, what have they done for you? What have they done to help you? That being said, the next thing is you have to allocate your resources, your time, your budget, and your personnel. Okay, that's the next step. We've got vision statement, mission statement, SWOT analysis, focus on being smart, the 5 parts of SMART. And then in order to do the SMART and the SWOT, you've got to think of the key areas like marketing, operations, finance, and human resources that are going to help you understand that. The next one is allocating your resources, your time, your budget, and personnel. I feel like we've already talked about that, Wade, the importance of not just your time for the strategy, but how much time are you going to spend on each one of these topics to accomplish your goal? It's just a part of being focused.
I did have something to chime in on that because I don't know why this episode has really sparked some things in my brain, but after 25 years of being on my own and 35 years of this business that I'm in, I look back on things that I did that it's like there was some stupid things I did that wasted resources or I didn't allocate them. So one stupid thought, like many years ago when I first went out on my own, I was printing my own business cards. And today I can say I'm embarrassed by that. I was like, oh, I'm trying to save money and all this stuff. But my time spent on that would have been better out there finding new clients. I went down paths that I thought were cool, but did it eventually get me to where I wanted to go with my business? Again, I did this little timeline. I could probably talk about it in another episode, but it was a timeline exercise that said, what are these turning points in my life? And sometimes when you talk about these resources, I don't want to go into too much detail, but when I finally decided to do this, finally got this result. And it's like, I should have done that all along. Taking the time to jump in and say, what am I doing? Doing more like 80-20, the Pareto crunch. What of that little 20% of things that you could be doing could get 80% of the results?
That's just right on the money. We can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and this can be a really dry podcast. Or we can break it down and let folks know how important these things are. Not just to tell people about it, but let our listeners know why it's important. And again, our podcast should have example after example. I know some of ours are dry and specific. They're almost like a classroom, but neither one of us like that. That's not who we are. And so when I've listed these 10 steps, literally there could be 100 steps, you know that. But to just focus, we've already gone through the top 5 most important, but the next ones that I will go through just to end things up here for Strategery 101 is implementing the plans that you've made. Implement. That's the next thing. You've done all the analysis. You've decided how you're going to do it. You decided who's going to do it. You've got your vision. You've got your mission. You're ready to go. Now it's time to implement the plan. So you got to break down each one of these strategies into measurable steps or tasks, and then assign those responsibilities and deadlines for each one of those steps for the people that are going to help you achieve that within your organization or your consultants. And one interesting thing for contractors is a project management tool is perfect for implementing and monitoring a strategic plan. The two go hand in hand. I just thought I would bring that up. Any thoughts on that?
Several thoughts here, breaking down strategies and steps to get there. We've talked about several things that build this plan and vision, mission, all this stuff. But again, communicating it to your team. I'm thinking about a particular time in my life where I had somebody that I was very dependent on. And at some point I became too dependent on it. They were doing things for me, but it held me back. And she didn't give in to the vision that I had. And her leaving one way or another was one of the best things that ever happened to me. The point I want to make out of that is sometimes if you don't have people on your team that are really buying into your goal, no matter what you think it is, if they're only out for themselves, and no matter how hard you try, you can't communicate to them, they could be the most productive person in the world, but they're killing your vision, and you need to find somebody else, get them on another bus, and you put somebody else in that seat.
I love it. Put them on another bus. Wow. Business, relationships, everything. There is a lot of truth and wisdom in that. Monitor and evaluate was the next one. Wait, key performance indicators was the first thing that keeps popping up. We've done a podcast on key performance indicators, financial key performance indicators. What other ways could you monitor this system after you've implemented it?
Again, going back to the goals thing and having what those are defined becomes like, how do we get to those things? And you got to have measures for each one of those. And I've preached this for a long time, these KPIs, but sometimes there's times in my business I don't pay attention to these KPIs. And that's when things start failing. I can look back on the times in my life that I start growing, and then you get comfortable and you stop doing the things you used to do. But some of the things like just watching, what is my revenue? Have I grown this, and just having these one things. And again, we could do a whole episode on what those KPIs are, but we definitely have done some of those, but finding out what those are and paying attention to them. And if it just takes somebody else, if you're the owner and it's all you, and you got this tunnel vision and you got 1,000 things to do, that may be something that slipped by the wayside. Somebody to bounce them off of, review them with. I don't care if it's your wife or whoever, they may tune you out. If they hold you accountable to look at those numbers, whether they're driving those numbers or not, that's what you need. Is you need somebody to hold you accountable, collect those numbers, and make sure you're adjusting your business and plan around it.
Right. One of my best surety companies, Wade, provides financial analysis, key performance indicators, ratios, comparing, benchmarking your organization that they bond and other organizations like yours. It's just a service they provide. It helps them understand when something's out of whack and maybe needs some discussion. But when you review those enough and you're monitoring it, then you're keeping the plan on track. I think you're exactly right there. Number 8, communicate the plan and regularly update everyone on the progress. Stellar communication, written, verbal, and nonverbal, is stellar communication. You want to have stellar communication about this plan and your vision. That's huge. one of the best ways, Wade, I found to communicate effectively, and it's almost magical. It's the Procter and Gamble one-page memo philosophy. So I'm not going to get into that. Maybe we could do another podcast on it, but Google it and look what is involved in a one-page memo. It's the same thing that's involved in the SWOT analysis: who, what, when, where, and why. It's the same thing that's involved in you communicating anything. Say, Wade, I want to bring something to your attention that's a problem and we're working together. If I use this one-page memo strategy, either as a leader of the organization or an employee of the organization, and I do it properly, it is getting things done. It's one page of communication. So I personally think it's fantastic. And literally, I dusted it off and used it the other day outrageously effectively. So does it work? Oh, yeah. And I know that. I just wanted to bring that up. So you got to communicate. Procter & Gamble one-page memo, look it up. The next one, number 9, review and revise your entire strategy on a regular basis. Do you completely do a 360 degree? No, not if you have a good vision and mission statement. But if it wasn't good to begin with, that might need tweaking too, because everything else isn't coming together, is it?
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. I was just putting something in my book exactly about that. Things are not static in business, and your cost structure changes. You hire somebody or buy some software or whatever, things are going to change. And you can't sit by and idly watch it. We could talk about the Panda Express story, or contractors in general know the supply chain issues that came out of COVID. And you can't set it and forget it. That's just the short, sweet answer. Don't set it and forget it.
Yeah, it's like that propel rotisserie. That was their main thing. Set it and forget it. You chuck a big old leg of lamb in there and forget it.
That doesn't apply here.
Doesn't apply here. And I can tell you, just like the one-page memo, the more you do it, the more effective it is. The more it's ingrained in how you do business. It's just a smart way of thinking. The last thing is just simply that there is software and templates to help you structure your plan. And there's a lot of information out there on the internet you can sort through to help you do it. We, of course, will have this outline on our podcast for our listeners if you want to listen to it. If there's specific topics that you want us to explore with you more, reach out to us. Any other thoughts, Wade?
No, that's a great way to end it. I also got to say, too, when I first started thinking about this episode, I was like, this is another one on strategic planning. And I've actually enjoyed this because, yeah, so many people talk about it, but just get off your butt and go do it. Honestly.
Please. It's amazing how it will help you. It will help your employees. It will help every relationship you have by getting off your butt and doing something like this. It's just so helpful. There's a reason why it works. And that's why I wanted to use the Panda Express for our listeners, Wade. Go ahead and research it. Try to debunk it. Try to say it doesn't work. Try to say it's a bunch of jargon BS. I ain't got time for that. Just go ahead and try and see if you can do that. I seriously challenge you. You'll find that you have to do it.
Absolutely. With that thought, I appreciate you bringing this topic up today, Stephen. I think if our contractors will take it to heart, it can make a big difference in their business. Thank you. Any of you that are listening, if you got any thoughts or feedback, as Stephen said, we'd love to hear it. Put it in the comments. You got questions? You got other topics? Drop them in the notes. And wanted to thank you for listening to the Contractor Success Forum. For more information, go visit contractorsuccessforum.com, the Carver CPA's YouTube channel, or profitfirstconstruction.com. And please share and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Follow us every week as we post a new episode, and we will look forward to seeing you next time.